You might say that Gene Simpson stopped someone from jaywalking and 2 fine officers who were killed. Many other times the officers are stopping gangbangers to frisk them, as they're allowed to do under a Supreme Court ruling called Terry versus Ohio. The court recognized that police officers have a duty when they're suspicious of someone to question them, and that they shouldn't be sitting ducks if they think the people are armed. The case involved 2 officers in Cleveland, Ohio, who saw a man casing a liquor store for robbery, and he sort of sensed that something was wrong. The officers had him under surveillance, and he started to walk away. They went up and they frisked him, and they found a loaded pistol, which was a violation of law, and they arrested him. And the lower court threw out the arrest, saying that it was an illegal search under the 4th Amendment. And the Supreme Court said no. And this case is still case law. The police officers under Terry versus Ohio throughout the United States have a right to frisk people. So when people, the other tragedy I want to mention that I've never forgotten involved Officer Henry Bunch and his partner Rocky Bridges. These were 2 huge police officers. Henry Bunch about 6'3" or 4". Rocky Bridges not that tall, but he was an amateur boxer. And when I talked to him later, he told me that he was training for the Police Olympics. He boxed every year, and he had run 8 miles that day. And they made a routine DUI arrest of a little guy about 5'7", and there was no problem at all. At the time, San Jose did not have the facilities and was using a little trailer to do the booking reports before taking prisoners to the county jail. And Henry Bunch went into the trailer with this fellow who was arrested, and Officer Bridges went to get some arrest forms to be filled out, and he heard a shot. And I spent a lot of time with Rocky Bridges, and he never recovered from that. He said, I can't explain to you how it felt to rush into that trailer and see my best friend with his brains blown all over the trailer. And Rocky Bridges, as I mentioned, was a tremendously powerful man. He wrestled with this prisoner, trying to get the gun away from him, and it went off twice more. The bullets went outside the trailer, and finally the 3rd time, the bullets killed the prisoner. And the saddest part of all was the usual cries came out that Officer Bridges had murdered this man because he had killed a cop. And I mention these stories to you because I know you don't live in that world. And I know when you dial 911, like me now, an old citizen, there's one thing you want. You want the police officers to get there as quickly as possible, to put themselves between you and someone who's dangerous and violent. You don't want them to be worried that they're going to end up going before a citizen review board. Because sometimes even well-intentioned citizens can't understand those stories that I just explained to you, how quickly someone can die. But the police see that all the time, and they know it. And the best example that I can give you is the Cambridge police incident. To refresh your memory, Cambridge police, outside Harvard University, where I spent more than 3 years, and NYPD wanted to law school, where I immediately got into a debate with a young criminal law professor by the name of Alan Dershowitz. I won. This Cambridge case illustrates why citizen review boards don't work and why the police are right to resist them and hate them. Professor Gates, who is an expert and a Harvard faculty member on African history, came home from a long plane ride and was tired and irritable, but a neighbor saw him and someone else entering the house. He had forgotten his keys and apparently they forced open a window. The police responded. They didn't know Professor Gates, which might have caused some ego problems on his part. He was tired and irritable, and he started what was, I think, some racial comments toward the police officers who were trying to determine whether or not he was a burglar. And finally, the university police arrived and confirmed that it was indeed Professor Gates, and the wording continued, and the police officers arrested him. Sergeant arrested him for disorderly conduct. A police officer would have been derelict in his duty if he had not ascertained who the homeowner was. I can imagine what Professor Gates would have had to say if these two cops had allowed someone to burglarize his house and drove away without investigating or making an arrest. But he took this very personally, and as you know, it became a national news incident. But I happened to be watching the press coverage when President Obama was asked a question about it, and I was truly astonished at his words. And what he said, in effect, was, I don't know the facts, but it's clear that, let's face it, the Cambridge police was stupid, and Professor Gates is a friend of mine. Well, our president is not only the president of the United States, who shouldn't be speaking about a case, especially when he doesn't know the facts or has a friend involved, but he's a Harvard-trained lawyer. And when someone like that reacts that way, the police can understandably be concerned that when a citizen review board handles a complaint against them, they may get this reflex action. Well, the cop didn't have to use that much force, the cop didn't have to do this, the cop should have done it this way, should have done it that way. Even though our penal code is quite clear that you are not justified in saying that. Now, the police are held and should be held to using reasonable force. No one wants the police walking around beating people up, and in fact, it's terrible police work. So, citizen review boards, which the Mercury News has an obsession over, are really a symbol. I've studied them, and there's not one city I know of where citizen review boards have improved community relations. They worsen them, because the people who are running citizen review boards often use them as a platform. Think Reverend Al Sharpton. How would you like to have him sitting on your review board if you were a police officer? And these are the things that go through police officers' minds as they're trying to do their job of protecting us. The fact is, of course, that it can be used as a political platform for some people, and when it does tremendous damage, because I can testify when the San Jose Mercury said, I changed the police culture when I became police chief. As usual, they're about half right. I didn't change anything, because the police chief may have 4 stars on his shoulder, but he doesn't have very much formal authority. The police officers changed the culture. I didn't. I just kind of cheered them on and tried to set the right climate. And we had what I believe was really the first and widespread participatory management, in which the officers were given a voice to tell management what they thought of us. And I used to assure them